50 states will pick a president in November, but the whole race could come down to a single state. We'll tell you which state that may be and answer your questions in this edition of the Video Crystal Ball. Many people say the Electoral College is anachronistic, and in many ways it is. But even in the modern era, we're fascinated by the Electoral College. It seems like a simple proposition. It's almost just a game of checkers. In fact, the Electoral College is multi-dimensional chess. You have 130 million votes of Americans channeled into 538 electors, electoral votes, and 270, of course, needed for election. There are hundreds and hundreds of possible combinations from the 50 states plus the District of Columbia with electoral votes, these combinations potentially producing 270 electoral votes. And there are actually several dozen realistic combinations of the 50 states plus DC producing 270 votes in our polarized Democratic versus Republican era. We've put together an electoral map that we believe represents the most likely combination in November. Let's take a look at that. Now, this is, of course, as of April. It's conventional wisdom as of April, and we all know how much conventional wisdom in April is worth in November. But we have to start somewhere. And if you'll look at this map, you'll see that the dark red states are pretty much guaranteed for Mitt Romney. They're safe Republican states. And we also have one likely Republican state, Arizona. We switched that from solid Republican to likely Republican because the Democrats and President Obama are putting so much emphasis on trying to win Arizona. They think they could have won it in 2008 had McCain from Arizona not been the nominee. They think they have a chance because of the large Hispanic Latino vote in Arizona this time. We'll see. We think it's unlikely, but it's worth watching. Then you also have three other states that we have in the leans Republican category. That is, we think they will go to Romney. The most likely to switch to Romney from Obama is Indiana. Amazingly, Obama carried it narrowly in 2008, but we think that's very likely to go to Romney this year. Missouri, Obama very narrowly failed to carry it in 2008. We don't see that being particularly close in November. We believe Romney will carry that fairly handily. And then North Carolina, which was Obama's closest victory, just a few thousand votes in North Carolina in 2008. Yes, we know the Democrats are holding their convention there. Yes, we know that they have a major plan to organize the state centered around the Democratic convention in very early September. But we will be very surprised if in the end Obama is able to carry North Carolina again. So we have that leaning to Romney. Now, let's go to the other side and look at Obama's likely total. And we will see that the dark blue states are what you would expect, places like California and Washington out west, and Obama's native Illinois, or the state that he represented in the Senate, much of the Northeast, which is solidly Democratic. And then we have some leans and likely Democratic states like Oregon and New Mexico, which I think in the end will go for Obama. But there are three states that we're watching in particular that should be for Obama, but under the right set of conditions, meaning a bad economy, could become competitive in November. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Of course, Romney grew up in Michigan, so that gives him a little bit of a home state advantage. In Wisconsin, you have the recall election involving Republican Governor Scott Walker. It's possible, depending on the outcome, that could backfire against the Democrats, hurting their cause in November. And Pennsylvania has never been in love with Barack Obama. It voted substantially for Hillary Clinton back in the 2008 primary. It did go Democratic, as most of these states did for Obama in November, but there is hesitation there, particularly among the white working class. So we're watching Pennsylvania as well. If you add all this up, you get to Obama's current total of 247. That includes those lean states that could change. 247 for Obama, Romney's total of 206, and then the toss-up states. 7 super swing states with 85 toss-up electoral votes, and they're in every region. Nevada and Colorado out west, Iowa and Ohio in the Midwest, Florida in the Deep South, Virginia in the Mid-Atlantic, and New Hampshire in the Northeast. And let's remember, even those 4 electoral votes in New Hampshire can end up mattering a lot. We all remember the 2000 election, and the final total there was Bush 271 and Al Gore 266 with 1 faithless elector, and we all know what happened in Florida. But these races can turn very close, and every electoral vote matters. Now, one great thing about the Electoral College and all of these moving parts to the Electoral College is that you can play a lot of games, and we have some in this week's Crystal Ball, but one we want to show you right now. Let's take a look at this electoral map that is an interesting play on 2008. Essentially, it gives Mitt Romney any state that performed less than Barack Obama's average national percentage, which was 52.87% of the popular vote, or to round up, 52.9%. Any state that gave Obama less than 52.9%, we've given to Romney. Any state that Obama carried by greater than his national average percentage of 52.9%, we've kept in the Obama column. And you can see that Obama will win narrowly 272 electoral votes, 270 needed to win, if he just carries the states where he outperformed his national average in 2008. Of course, it's always complicated, more complicated than one could suggest in a map like this. Take New Hampshire. New Hampshire has a bit of home state flavor for Mitt Romney. He was governor of Massachusetts. Some polls have shown Mitt Romney leading in New Hampshire. Others have shown Barack Obama ahead. Let's say Mitt Romney carries New Hampshire with those 4 electoral votes. Well, suddenly, Mitt Romney's the winner at 270 exactly, and Barack Obama has 268. Now, how could Barack Obama make up those 4 electoral votes and then some? The most likely state among the red states that you see here, we believe, is none other than Virginia. Surprisingly enough, at least to people like me who are native Virginians, who've lived here for, in my case, 6 full decades. We could never have imagined Virginia being that crucial to a presidential election or being one of the super swing states, but that's exactly what it has turned out to be. The reason we picked Virginia is because Virginia came the closest to Barack Obama's national average of the 50 states in 2008. Virginia was about 52.6% as compared to the national average for Obama of 52.9%. Obama did much better in Virginia than he did in Ohio, where he got just a shade above 51%. Barack Obama did much better in Virginia than he did in Florida, where he got just a little over 51%. And of course, in Virginia, Obama did far better than he did in North Carolina. It's hard to imagine Barack Obama losing Virginia and carrying Ohio or North Carolina or Florida. And of course, if Mitt Romney should carry those 4 critical states, North Carolina, Florida, Virginia, and Ohio, he probably has won the election. So it could come down to Virginia, at least in this one Electoral College scenario. And you will see dozens, if not hundreds of them before November. We don't want to overwhelm you with maps in this video crystal ball, but let's take a look at just one more map that tells us how stable American politics is, at least in 33 states, because 33 states have stayed with the same party in all the presidential elections between 1996 and 2008. So in those 4 elections, you can see in the red states here what you would expect. Many of the Midwestern states and the Rocky Mountain states, the Deep South states, they have been consistently Republican. Then on the Democratic side, the vast majority of the Northeast, the industrial heartland of the country, as well as the West Coast, which Republicans call the left coast, all going for Democrats. The yellow states are the states that have switched in at least one election. Mainly, by the way, these were states that switched for Bill Clinton in 1996, but they also include the breakthroughs that Barack Obama had in 2008 in the West and the Midwest and the South. But there's a lot of stability here, and there will be more stability than most people suspect in November. My guess is that a minimum of 40 of the 50 states will stay in the same party column as in 2008. It could be as high as 45, 46, 47 states. This election could turn on the changes in just a handful of the states. In that sense, it may be very much like 2000 versus 2004, when only 3 states changed sides between those 2 Bush elections. We could see the same kind of thing for this November. As always, we take a few questions from Twitter, and we appreciate very much our loyal readers of the Crystal Ball and watchers of the Crystal Ball video. We appreciate your submitting these questions, and we picked just a couple of samples. I'll take 2, and then I'll let my team members handle the other 2. The first one is from Shane Wright 22. And the question is, any real possibility that Nevada goes red, Republican red, and Arizona goes Democratic blue? No, I don't think so. I think you can order the states more or less in their likelihood to turn Democratic or turn Republican. Given the size of the Hispanic vote in Nevada and the solid organization of the Latino vote in Nevada, and given Barack Obama's enormous win there in 2008 and Harry Reid's re-election against the odds, really, in the midterm election of 2010, Nevada is far more likely to stay in the Democratic column than Arizona is to switch to the Democratic column. So I think it is highly, highly, highly unlikely that Nevada would go Republican and Arizona would go Democratic. But I'm always prepared to be surprised. Now, the second question is from I Proclaim. And the question is, does Governor Scott Walker in Wisconsin win his recall vote? My sense of it is probably. I think it is very difficult to sell a recall on the basis that it's being sold in Wisconsin, and particularly with the Democratic candidates who are running. Had former Senator Russ Feingold decided to run for governor, for example, I think Russ Feingold might well have beaten Scott Walker. But I have a hard time seeing the current Democratic candidates, either one of the 2 front runners, I have a hard time seeing them defeating Scott Walker. I think it will be reasonably close, but in the end, I think Walker will win. Recall elections are squirrely affairs. For most voters, they look at it this way. They elected someone for a 4-year term. There are at least some voters in the middle who are willing to give the benefit of the doubt to the incumbent and will continue the incumbent at least for the remainder of the term. So our early bet is on Walker. We're always open to new events, new circumstances that may change that prognostication. And now I'm delighted to turn this over to my 2 able members of the Crystal Ball team. First, Jeff Skelly, and then Kyle Condit.
Hi there. Our third question for the video Crystal Ball comes from Twitter user Lefty Rosie. And she asks, I'm interested in predictions for 2 Senate races, Brown versus Mandel in Ohio and Warren versus Brown in Massachusetts. Bet I'm not alone. I don't think you are alone, Rosie. In the first race in Ohio, the Crystal Ball currently has that race rated as leans Democratic, with Sherrod Brown, the incumbent, having a slight edge. Basically, the situation there is that we think Brown is in a position where he may run slightly ahead of Obama, and he's been polling ahead of Mandel, and Mandel has run what is seen as a somewhat controversial campaign that has drawn a lot of criticism in the media. But should Obama's campaign falter in Ohio, the negative coattails could possibly drag Brown down. And as for the other Brown in Massachusetts, the Republican moderate, Scott Brown, The situation there is that you have probably the most expensive and knockdown, drag-out race in the country this cycle. Brown has cultivated a modern image that is very appealing to blue-collar Democrats in the Bay State, and Warren's going to have to do a lot to take him down. However, they're both raising incredible amounts of money, and Warren is basically the strongest candidate that could have faced off against Brown. So it'll be definitely one to watch.
Our final question is from Nick, who asked, does Joe the Plumber have a chance against Marcy Kaptur in Ohio? Listeners will remember Joe the Plumber from the John McCain, Barack Obama race from 2008. He was kind of a minor celebrity in that campaign, and now he's running for the U.S. House in Ohio. The problem for Joe the Plumber is not only is he running against a longtime incumbent, Marcy Kaptur, Democrat, but the district, the Ohio 9th District, was drawn specifically to elect a Democrat. Republicans, when they drew the House maps in Ohio, drew a number of seats that were heavily Democratic, and this one that stretches from Toledo to Cleveland was by 2008 was a 62% Obama district, and now that's up to about 67%. It's one of the most Democratic districts in Ohio. And so Joe the Plumber is probably not going to get elected to that district specifically because it was drawn to elect Kaptur, who defeated fellow incumbent Dennis Kucinich back in the primary in March. Thanks as always for joining us for the Video Crystal Ball, and we'll see you next time.